Good morning. It is Tuesday, July 20th, 21st, and I'll call to order the Story County Board of Supervisors meeting. Please stand if you are able and join us in stating the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion to adopt today's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Basil?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Heddens? Aye. Next is public comment number 1. This is comment period is for the public to address items on today's agenda. If you'd like to make a comment in your meeting room, you can just come on forward, or if you're online, please either raise your hand or click *9 to make public comment. I'm seeing nobody come forward and no one on Zoom making comments, so we'll close public comment number 1. Next up is the bid opening and consideration for the Story County Justice Center HVAC equipment replacement, phases 2 and 3.
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we received 3 bids. I think that everybody, you've got a bid tab, I think that we handed out, so.
Okay. Jeff's gonna open, read off, and I'll do some writing.
You're gonna take notes, okay.
Yeah, and then we'll do some talking.
So the first is from Bergstrom Construction. Oh, they're already old. Saves me. I didn't bring the letter. So we do have a bid bond for 5% of the bid amount, completed and signed. Okay, Bergstrom Construction, we have a base bid of $1,505,000. So $1,505,000. They list a contract time of 48 weeks. And again, a lot of that is lead time for equipment, we think, but that's definitely a good consideration. And then they acknowledge addendum number 1 is received. They list then the 2 breakouts that we asked for, phase 2 as $761,000 even. And phase 3, which is the courts building, is $744,000. Okay, the second bid is from HPC Construction from Ames. So they do have a bid bond of 5% of the bid amount. Okay, HPC has a base bid of $1,240,000 even. They list 48 weeks for completion of the project. They acknowledge addendum number 1. And they list the 2 phases. Phase 2 again is the sheriff and jail support building. It's $558,000. And phase 3, the courts building, is $682,000. Okay, and the last bid is from Lang Construction Group from Grimes. And again, they have bid bond for 5% of the bid amount. IVAC envelope. More work.
More durable.
Yes, they're indestructible. Okay, Lang Construction, we have base bid $1,667,600. They list a contract time of 52 weeks. And they acknowledge addendum number 1. And then the two phases, phase 2, sheriff and jail support building, $867,200. And phase 3, the courts building is $800,400. So $800,400. All right, so that's the three bids received.
3 bids received, yes. So at this point, total project budget is 1.33 million. So it looks like we have one
Yeah.
that is under that. So normally at this time, Jeff and I will review bids, board chooses to move forward with, and then next Tuesday's meeting, we would come back with our recommendation of which contractor we would recommend.
Yeah.
Unless there's questions.
Right.
Your budget is 1.3. What was the bid estimate that you had that you gave us the other day?
About 1.5.
Yeah, we were closer to 1.5 with the,
Mhm.
yeah, just our
So,
construction.
30 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was within, like I say, that original budget.
Yeah, because part of that original budget amount, we're 2 years old at this point, because phase 2 was originally scheduled to be in FY '21. So yeah.
Yeah.
And lead times, it's kind of what we was expecting with the
Yeah.
way everything is right now. I was hoping for a little shorter, but yeah, we were anticipating some long lead times on equipment, so that's gonna equate to
Yeah. and I think-
project duration being drug out, but
Yeah, and just some of the phasing of the work, because we're
Yeah.
not disrupting too much of the building at any one time as we
Sure.
work through. So, yeah, I think they're building that into their schedule to start with. Yeah,
So,
can't really shut the heat off everywhere at once. Or someone may
or
not like
cooling,
that.
depending
Or,
on
yeah,
where we're at
depending
that
where it
time of
is.
year,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, and just, with the courts building, that's a tough one to coordinate and schedule with, so.
All right. Any other questions?
Okay,
Okay.
we'll see you
Thank
next
you.
Tuesday.
All right, thanks.
Next, we have the Arca Story County Annual Report, and I see that Tricia Crane, the Executive Director, is here today.
Good morning, thank you for having me. I just have to say, it was funny when I went back to last year's report, when I wrote it, and I was saying that I was hoping we would start services last July again because of COVID, and realizing that now a year later, we still really haven't, and just how crazy we thought things would change. So the Arc of Story County receives funding from 4 programs through the asset process. 2 of these services are supported through the region. Our special recreation program, Active Lifestyles, continues to thrive in large part from the funding we receive from CICS, the city, and United Way. We are currently serving 110 athletes. Up until March of 2020, we were providing services 5 nights per week. However, that changed abruptly when COVID-19 hit. Special Olympics of Iowa suspended all programming and continues to hold virtual programming. The ARC offered a twice-weekly Zoom chat to keep our participants involved with one another and hopefully assist with the self-isolation that was and is taking place. Starting in May of 2021, we offered a weekly walking group at Ted Tedesco Park and activities at the Miracle Park at Ines Grove. This month, we are hosting water walking at Furman Aquatic Center and continuing with our walking group. We look forward to adding additional activities once Special Olympics continues with programming. People with disabilities in Story County have grown to know Active Lifestyles programs as a safe, social, and healthy activity to which they can participate, grow, and be contributing members of our community. Care coordination is an important aspect of the day-to-day services the ARC provides. Families new to the community or in search of which services are suitable for their child see the ARC as a place to receive answers and learn what is available in the community. Care coordination has been increasingly needed during this time, with families seeking additional support and funding while their child is not in school. Project Search is beginning its 6th year at Iowa State on August 16th. Though this program is not funded through the asset process, as it has become a valuable service to the disability community. This year, we had 5 students or interns graduate from the program. We were very fortunate to still be able to hold the program despite the pandemic. We have internship sites across campus, including School of Ed, Recreational Services, Iowa State Daily, Transportation, Parks Library, Dining, Ivy College of Business, and Athletics, to name a few. Project Search is a 9-month-long employment training program for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The participants receive classroom instruction coupled with 3 different internship rotations. Project Search is a national program with an employment success rate of 93%. We have 8 students scheduled to participate in the program for the 2021-22 school year. The ARC is not a typical employment provider. We saw a need in the community and researched the best program. This program has allowed us to meet the emerging needs of our participants and meet a growing need in our county for quality employment services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The ARC has also been an integral member of getting the inclusive playground in Miracle Field to fruition in Story County. Regardless of whether one is in a wheelchair or has an intellectual disability, all people want and deserve the right to play, which is a vital part of development and inclusion. As always, it is a privilege for the ARC to provide services in Story County and use those services to assist others in living a life the rest of us may take for granted.
Great, thank you, Tricia.
Yeah.
Questions?
I was just wondering if you've been able to meet the need for the care coordination. How's that going? Are your staff numbers up, down?
Well, what we do on behalf of care coordination is refer out to the other organizations. Staffing is a huge issue right now with all of the organizations. I mean, we see it just in the activities we're holding at the ARC that, for example, Friendship Arc Homes or Mainstream Living or Optima Life Services can't necessarily get their individuals to our activities because they're so short-staffed. So that in and of itself is an issue. But as far as the ARC being able to meet the needs of the people who come to us for the care coordination services, yeah, that's no problem.
Great.
Tricia, just a couple questions I have, and full disclosure, I serve on your board of directors on the staff. For Project Search, so how do you do the outreach? So to get the individuals who want to partake in that program, and what's the age range or age requirement, if there is one, for folks to partake in that?
Well, it is seen as a transition age program. So those individuals graduating from high school and going into adult services, we kind of broaden our age range. So we have it be anyone who's graduated from high school up to about age 33 or 35. I believe we do have somewhat of an for that age category, older individual that's attending this year because due to the pandemic, he lost his position in the community and so, wants to regain some of his employment skills. We reach out to all of the school districts every single year. We go to every school district in Story County and Boone to meet with the principals and special education teachers to discuss the program. And we send it out to the AEA and all of our constituents with the ARC.
So great, thank you. And then my last question is, I know you continue to check with Special Olympics Iowa. Have you had any update as to when they're going to move into their next tier or opening up for
No,
Special Olympics?
no.
Not yet.
We have a meeting scheduled with the executive director of Special Olympics, so I'm hoping that he'll be able to share more with us then. A good sign is that they did just post that they're holding their unified golf.
Yeah.
And so that has me very hopeful that we will get back to being able to provide some sporting events to the athletes.
Great, that's all the questions I have.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Veterans Affairs Quarterly Report, Brett McLean, and I see he's on Zoom. Good morning, Brett. We can't hear you, Brett. No, we can't hear you. Is your volume turned up on the settings? Make sure your microphone's turned up. I think you're muted. Can you? No, we still can't hear you. You're unmuted. Brett, we still cannot hear
Can
you.
you put in the chat if you can't hear him?
I think that, Brett, can you hear us? Yes, he can hear us. We cannot hear him. Have you checked, downward is where the, what is it, your, I think it's on the far left corner where it would be the mute, would be settings, that little arrow for settings, and to see if your speaker is turned down,
You can just check his keyboard as well.
or check your keyboard and see if your speaker's turned down. Your microphone, that's what I was looking for. Microphone turned down, not your speaker, sorry. No, we still cannot hear you, Brett.
Call it.
Yeah, do you want to just call in? Give them a second to call in. No, while he's still trying to dial in, there is no minutes this week. Is there a motion to approve personnel actions?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Merkin? Aye. Basil?
Aye.
Hens? Aye. Consideration of claims. Is there a motion to approve claims?
Move approval of claims.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Basil? Aye. Merkin?
Aye.
Hens? Aye. Are you on now, Brett? I think you're muted, so you're gonna have to *9. Brett, if you can hear me, you need to click *9 on your phone. Okay, while we're waiting for Brett to see if he comes on, is there, either of you pulling anything from the consent agenda today? No, is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda items as listed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Merkin?
Aye.
Basil?
Aye.
Hens? Aye. Approved. Okay, is Brett on? No, it looks like he's still dialing in. I just want to wait because we do have a public hearing item. Would be the next on the agenda, so I want to see if he gets in. Yeah, we'll see. If not, we'll just move on with it and see if he can get on for the last part of the agenda. I can see him dialing and trying, so let's see. I think that must be Brett. You just have to unmute.
All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Now, Brett.
Okay. Sounds good. Sorry about that. I don't know. I'm just having a lot of problems this morning. I'll just go down through my quarterly report. Period covered April 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2021. Greetings from the Commission of Veterans Affairs. Commissioners Monty Woodward, Nick Brasetto, Luke Vance, Pat Pekin, and Amy Rosenberg. During our fourth quarter, we didn't have any veterans or families of veterans who were eligible for county VA benefits. So that was 0 disbursements. The FY 21 budget will reflect the ending balance of $12,485.10 on June 30th, 2021. Outreach programs, April 28th, we had a job fair in Ames from 9 to 3. April 30th, we had the VA Medical Mobile Unit here at our building in the parking lot from 8 to 4. During the fourth quarter, we interviewed 161 veterans and or surviving spouses for eligibility for federal, state, and county VA benefits. And out of that 161, 136 were men, 25 women, 20 World War II, 26 Korea War, 47 Vietnam War, 11 served during Persian Gulf War, 17 during the Cold War, 10 served in Iraq or Afghanistan, and 4 National Guard. 26 of those were surviving spouses of veterans. And then at the bottom of my report, I just threw in a little bit of a snapshot of the FY20, what we call the GDX report. That's a report from the federal VA. That's expenditures on their part that's going to veterans. And so what I just kind of put on here was our population has increased from 2019 it was 4,085 to 4,351, which is all of a sudden a turn in direction because it's always been going the other way. And then our VA benefits have increased from 2019 to 2020, a little over 3 million. Our personal goal was to hit 30 million, and we almost hit 31 million. That's money coming into the county through veterans and surviving spouses, and we just hope that they spend their money right here. So, and that's pretty much my quarterly report, board.
Any questions?
I have the outreach programs, the job fair and the mobile medical unit. Do you know how many veterans attended each of those?
We've only actually had one. We had 2 of them set up and 1 canceled because we didn't have anybody signed up. And that was the 1st of July in Nevada. That one was canceled. Now this one that we had in April, we had 7 that showed up there. I think it was an advertisement issue. So I've got something going out in the paper, and we're doing a little bit more advertising because our next one's going to be the first Friday in August, which will be here at the Story County Human Service Center.
What about
yeah. What was that, Linda?
about the mobile medical unit? How many people attended for that?
That we had 7 at our last one.
Then how about the job? Okay, that was that. Then I also asked about the job fair. I asked about both.
Oh, okay. We had we only had 3 veterans for the job fair. There was a lot of other people there that weren't veterans. I don't know the number on that, but on the mobile medic unit, we had 7. That was here on the 30th.
So Brett, then just for clarification, on your August 6th, which would be that first Friday in August, is that your next job fair or is that the mobile medical unit?
That's the mobile medical unit from Des Moines, and they'll have a staff of 7 with them this time. They're doing anything at that unit from lab work to telemedicine, dermatology, teledermatology, And so veterans are really liking it. The ones that do show up for this, they're liking it. This saves them the drive to Des Moines, plus the time and everything, and parking down there is just a mess. So we're hoping to do this about every 3 months. As long as I can get people on this end to sign up, they'll keep coming. And maybe at some point we can get a C-Box built in Story County, like they have in Fort Dodge, Marshalltown, and Carroll. But this is just kind of a start here to just see what kind of numbers that we'll be getting going forward.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yep.
No additional questions. Thank
Yeah, one other thing I do want to mention, if I could, it's not part of my report, but something that has come up in the last few weeks with our neighboring county, Marshall County. Unfortunately, they had both of their service officers go into retirement pretty much at the same time without any notice, one due to health and one wasn't. So they've asked for help over there. They're also asking for help from Jasper County, Tama County, and Grundy, just because it's very difficult. When this does happen, it's very difficult to help out your neighboring county when you're already busy yourself, you know. So working with Ethan, you hopefully you will see an agreement coming your way for an hourly charge, along with any other thing that we might charge them for, like postage and things like that. But this is a need that is in place right now because there is no service officers in Marshall County to help the veterans. So the veterans are kind of hurting in this situation, as well as the neighboring counties. So I just wanted to inform you that will be coming. Nothing today for you to vote on because it's not on the agenda, or is the agreement even written up yet. And Sandra, she may have something to add to this too.
I really don't. Ethan,
you want to come up just so the mic can pick you up?
I really don't have anything substantive to add except for the information that I already shared with the board, that Ethan has provided some advice that an agreement should be in place before.
and it looks like the one from 2030, that could use some updating. So will you be working with Ethan and Brett to update that?
I can work with Brett to update that.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Do you need that, Sandra? I do have a copy of it.
Yep. I guess, yeah, the only thing, board, is just a immediate need. It's just kind of an urgency because of unfortunate circumstances. That the veterans need help there when they don't have anybody in town anymore.
Sure, certainly understand that. All right, any other questions for Brett? All right, thank you, Brett. Appreciate
You bet. Thank you. Have a great day.
you. Okay, next, moving on with our agenda, I have us that we're at item number 12, the public hearing item, discussion and consideration of resolution 22-03, vacation of a utility easement on lot 3 of Navy subdivision.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'll wait for the PowerPoint to come up. And the applicant, I noticed, is on the Zoom call, so he might want to speak at some point.
Okay.
If you have questions, you can address them to him. Okay, so we received a request to vacate a utility easement from the property owner. And that utility easement is located on lot 3 of Natty subdivision. All right.
Keith and Brenda Hobson submitted the request. They are currently joining Lot 3 with their neighboring parcel to the south, parcel C. And that has been approved by both the assessor's office and the auditor's office. So this situation to, get us to the point where we're vacating a utility easement is they're trying to build a detached garage on Lot 3. And in the zoning permit review, we noticed that there is an easement running underneath where the proposed garage would be. So they like to vacate it. It's not currently in use by any utility companies. With this new configuration of their parcel, is essentially running through the middle of it and is preventing development. So in 2014, Natty subdivision was platted and that was approved. The subdivision was approved by the Board of Supervisors. And as you'll see on the next slide, there are 15-foot wide utility easements around all 4 sides of the lots in that subdivision. Next slide, please. So on the left is just an image of Mr. and Mrs. Hobson's 2 properties, Lot 3 of Natty subdivision and then parcel C to the south. And not to scale, but in blue there is kind of the area that they are hoping to have vacated. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the subdivision plat and those kind of thicker dashed lines around the outside are all of the utility easements. And they are just looking for the southern 15 feet to be vacated on Lot 3. Next slide, please. So there are 2 different vacation processes we can use, one initiated by the proprietor of the lot and one initiated by the county. We did reach out to Ethan Anderson, the assistant county attorney, to help us determine if these utility easements have been publicly dedicated, to help us figure out which process to follow. He advised that they be re-accepted for the public in the resolution if it's approved with this utility easement vacation, because the resolution in 2014 accepting the Natty subdivision plat, he did not feel it was substantially clear in the resolution that they had been publicly accepted, even though there is an agreement from Mr. Natty dedicating those utility easements to the public. So we followed both processes. We sent out notices to property owners within a quarter mile of the easement area, and then certified notices mailed by certified mail to property owners within 300 feet of the easement area. No public comments have been received. We did have one person stop by the office just to ask for more clarification on where this was located. They had no concerns at that time, did not formally submit any sort of comment. We've received confirmation by email from both Alliant Energy and the water company, Iowa Regional Utilities Association. They're not using that easement area. Both of them confirmed that if development occurs in the future, they'll just need the western easement. For that reason, we've accepted the western and eastern 15 feet of the southern 15 feet from the vacation, so that those 2 areas would remain open for the utilities. Next slide, please. This is just a couple pictures that we took. This, as you can see, Lot 3 of Natty subdivision, it's not developed at all. It's just a wooded area. The other lots adjoining this that are not owned by Mr. and Mrs. Hobson are developed. They have homes and utilities running to them already. So this is just a vacant area here. You can see they're kind of prepping to build the garage if they're able. Next slide, please. And then this is just looking east in the same area. So again, it's just wooded area. Next slide. So points to consider, as I've mentioned, this easement area is vacant and has not been used for its intended purpose thus far. Staff has accepted those western and eastern 15 feet of the southern 15 feet, so those can be used by the utility companies should they need to do so. Mr. and Mrs. Hobson have received approval, as I mentioned, from the assessor and the auditor to join Lot 3 with their neighboring parcel to the south. And then on July 7th, the Planning and Zoning Commission did vote 5-0 to recommend approval to you all for vacating that utility easement area. Next slide. So our recommendation would be to recommend approval of the requested vacation. That would be number 2. As presented, since staff modified the request somewhat by accepting the western and eastern 15 feet of the southern 15 feet. Other options would be to approve it as submitted by the applicant, deny the resolution, or table it and ask staff and or the applicant to take another look at it. If you have any questions, I can answer those, and the applicant is also on the line if you have questions for him.
Any questions? No, I don't have any questions either. So this is a public hearing item, so we will open the public hearing for any comments for anyone in the room here. Or if you're online, you can raise your hand or click *9 to unmute yourself. I see that Mr. Hobson is online. I don't know if he has any comments he'd like to make.
Mrs. Hobson did attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and didn't have any comments besides she'd spoken with all the adjacent property owners.
Okay. All right. Not seeing anyone come forward or anyone want to speak online, I guess we will close the public hearing and see if there is a motion.
I move approval of resolution 22-03 vacating utility easement on the southern 15 feet of lot 3 of Natty subdivision, except the western and eastern 15 feet as presented and recommended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Basil? Aye. Merkin?
Aye.
Hens? Aye.
Thank
It
you.
is approved. Thank you. Okay, next we will move on to consideration of resolution 2206, the fiscal year 21 fund balance resolution. Yeah, see. Thank you.
Sorry, I checked on you. Thought we were good for a while. Good morning.
Good morning.
So every year we do a fund balance resolution at the end of the fiscal year so that all of the funds are appropriately assigned for the annual reports, the cash reports and everything. So what you have in front of you is the FY21 fund balance resolution, which was end of fiscal year 21, June 30th. Okay. As you can see, we have about 2.7 million in assigned funds. We have for general fund, and then inmate commissary, county attorney fine collection, and conservation, acquisition, and capital projects are all considered assigned funds also as part of the quote unquote general fund. Then we have the restricted funds. In the general fund, there is $1.6 million worth of restricted that we're carrying forward into the amendment for FY22 for the Storycom final payments that will be coming due in this year. Supplemental fund is restricted. All those other, you can see which ones are all restricted and what's in them. At the bottom is the committed funds in the general fund, which is for conservation. DAPL is still committed, okay? You had an official uncommitment / that's a separate resolution actually, but I listed on the year-end balances. Questions?
Questions? Questions either? All right, is there a motion?
I move approval of resolution number 22-06.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Merkin? Aye. Basil? Aye. Hens? Aye. Okay, thank you. Next, we have discussion and consideration of a request to consider an Ames Urban Fringe Plan Land Use Framework map amendment. Morning, Marcus.
Good morning, board. How are you?
Good.
Good. So this morning, what we have in front of you, just with how the Ames River Fringe Plan works, whenever an amendment request is going to be submitted, first has to come before you to accept that accept them to be able to apply even. And so that's what this is. There's no action to approve any actual amendment request. So applicants are Chuck Winkle Black and Roger Underwood. And they're requesting an amendment to the Ames River Fringe Plan to create industrial sites, generally in a smaller size, like 1 to 10 acres. So this wouldn't be competing with the Prairie View Industrial Center. That's 730 total acres, which can be divided as industry needs. So this is more focused on something smaller than that. So the area that they're requesting is a 63.4 net acre area on the west side of Dayton, north of 13th Street. It's currently A1 and is an agricultural production, and it's agricultural and farm services currently. The request is to change that to planned industrial and within the urban service area, which makes it so that before any development can happen, it has to be annexed into the city of Ames. Ames Council took action on this as an appropriate infill area to prioritize growth for the 2040 plan. Once it were to be brought in, if that was the case, it'll be on 3 sides surrounded by the city already. So it's just kind of expanding within there. They are proposing an industrial needs study, which will be completed at the end of July. Part of, if we get to that point of us recommending approval of that, would be that study showing that there is this actual need there. And again, this is just for you to, for the applicant to submit that request to the city of Ames, not for you to actually approve this. Next slide. You can see on that map there where this area is. It's the farmland surrounded there.
I think it's Eagles Loft is north of the site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That daycare center right there.
USDA across the street.
Yep, and then it used to be BASF
Yeah.
chemistry. Now I noticed the signs changed recently, but that's what's on the south side of there. So, so then really as far as what your action here would be is either to allow the applicant to submit that request to Ames to initiate that process, or deny the applicant that request to submit that application. And we're requesting that, or we're recommending that you allow the applicant to submit an Ames River Fringe Plan amendment application to the city of Ames.
And there's no concern about that natural area and industrial development.
Yeah, so
That's part that needs study, really seeing whether this is a good fit and if that need is truly there. So we'll use the outcome of that study to kind of guide what that would look like.
So it's the area between like where Pizza Ranch is up to Eagles Loft, is that the area?
Yeah,
Approximately.
yeah,
there, okay.
there's a few buildings north of Pizza Ranch.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking of it. I was thinking of the area north of Eagles Loft. So
No,
I'm visualizing it now.
Yeah.
So,
I don't.
I drive by it every day. So.
Yeah. I don't believe there are plans for growth north of Eagles Loft. I think this is just an infill opportunity the way the city sees it.
Sure.
But we are certainly going to consider, is there a need for this type of industrial development in the city of Ames, smaller scale, and weigh that against, preserving the agricultural land and potential natural resources on the site, so.
So I know the city's just getting back to the 2040 plan. In fact, they're going to have an initial presentation tonight. And I don't know how much that has changed from what we've seen before.
Yeah.
That's my only concern is what is Ames looking at for this specific area in its 2040 plan?
I think the council took action in January of last year on the growth scenarios.
January 20.
Yeah, 2020.
2020.
Mhm.
And this specific site, it wasn't considered, they have the north and the east and the west and the south growth scenarios, and the city, I think, directed staff to pursue the first tier of growth areas and all infill sites. And the city considered this an infill site because it's readily serviceable. So in terms of land use in the 2040 plan, I'm not sure if it's specifically designated as this is going to be an industrial site, but I know the city views it as, because I don't know if the 2040 plan gets into the specifics of land use versus this is just considered infill
And
on
this
the
is
maps that I've seen.
right across from the USDA.
Yeah.
Correct.
So not likely to be looked at as a residential infill at all.
Yeah.
That seems really unlikely.
Yeah.
Just given what's right
Exactly. There's
in those
industry to the
areas,
south and.
it doesn't really
The animal
fit
feeds lab to the.
that.
Yeah, and I think the eastern growth area, which is on the other side of 35, is where there was potential commercial and residential growth.
a mixed use kind of situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was on the east, the interstate.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be the next step if we vote to allow them to discuss this with Ames or present it to Ames, does it come back to us later?
Yes, so it'll go to the city of Ames. Ames will go through their full process, and then if they decide to approve, then it will come back to you as well as City of Gilbert, because you all have to act on it.
Comes to
And so you would see it again before anything is finalized, and then ultimately that annexation. So
And on the Gilbert, the majority of the entities have to approve a request in order for it to be, and if Gilbert doesn't act, I think in some cases, they find that there's no impact on them, so they have the option not to take any action. But I believe this has been routed to them, but we can double check.
They'll often waive it if it's not in the immediate area.
Yeah.
Right.
Which makes some sense.
So what you're needing, should the supervisors want to go that road, is
that's
a motion to allow the applicant to submit an application
to the city of Ames. Yep.
to the city of Ames. What?
This, it's up there now. Yep.
Oh, okay.
I move we allow the applicant, I have any more questions, you're ready for a motion? I move we allow the applicant to submit a full application for an Ames Urban Fringe Plan amendment to the city of Ames as recommended by staff.
Been moved and seconded. Merkin,
Aye.
Basil. Aye. Hens, aye.
Thank you, board.
Approved. Yep, thank you. Next up, we have discussion and consideration of supporting rural broadband grant application.
Yes, so this is a request for the board to support a matching grant for our telephone cooperatives in Story County, as well as letters of support as the telcos are pursuing a grant opportunity through the OCIO Empower Rural Iowa Broadband Grant with the state of Iowa. With that grant, there are matching points available if a local entity provides a match, and also additional points if letters of support from an entity are provided. Our telcos are making applications to expand fiber to rural areas of the county. And we have just completed our initial broadband survey as part of the broadband study we're working on with the Greater Des Moines Partnership and other counties in central Iowa. And it's really illuminated a need in these rural areas that these telcos are proposing to service. And I think this grant opportunity is a really important opportunity for us to show support for them and to try to get better service available to our rural communities. And even, a lot of these are proposing to service areas in the unincorporated area, Iowa Center, for instance. So the proposed match is $500 per location that the telcos are proposing to serve. With the grant from the state, they have tiered the needs so that the grant match is based on the need. We've proposed just a flat $500 match in this instance you know, the state's maps of need and the broadband study aren't always necessarily consistent. And so just in all fairness, thought a flat fee was the best way to go. The telcos did submit their numbers, approximate numbers of new locations, and so that's on the proposal to provide support. The last column is the proposed match based on the number of locations. And I believe this can come out of our American Rescue Act funds. I'm happy to take any questions, and Supervisor Merkin has been instrumental in being on the broadband study committee as well. So you might be able to answer more questions than me.
Well, we can do it together, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So we can use the American Rescue Act funds as a match because these are state dollars that are being
Exactly.
applied for.
Exactly, so the non-federal match part, yeah, doesn't, yeah, what you saw in the rescue plan guidelines does not apply to this. And I know that ISAC talked with the governor's office about this as well. And it should be a totally legitimate use of those funds. This, let me just say, this is not a huge amount of money right now. I think what staff were talking about was, let's see what, we talked about the telcos, let's see what we can leverage out of that $1 million of the state, or $100 million, excuse me, 1 million would not go very far. $100 million that the state has made available. There's also a plan to have that same amount of money available in the next couple of years. And I think this is just an initial phase of what we need to look at doing to support our local providers who are providing excellent services in our rural areas and to expand those.
And Levi with Huxcom is here too, if you've got questions.
Yeah, I'll answer any questions you guys have.
Just looking at the, where you have the approximate number of new locations, what is being presented here, I'm just kind of making that assumption is that's kind of what you can handle at this particular time when you're looking for that expansion.
Yeah, I think that is, we asked the telcos to submit the number of households they'd be serving in these areas. And so that's where those came from. Did that answer your question? Okay.
I'm just trying to think of the amount that they could take on to service in that particular area at this particular time. I know the
Yes.
build out can take so much
Yes.
time. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, I guess would be my.
And I believe there are requirements with the OCIO grant on when you have to have it, implement, yeah, sorry.
4 years is when
Thank
the
you.
build-out application, when the construction had to be completed.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll have to watch because there's 4 years with that money, but there's 3 years with the rescue plan money.
Right.
So we'll need to make sure if we do this and if the telcos, receive funding, which we hope they do, that our money gets kind of front loaded into that. So we get commitments done by December 2022 and out of our hands by December 2024. So that would just be a contract, I think, detail that we'd have to work out. I would also point out that it just varies. I mean, it's not like Story County is divided into 4 equal quadrants by our 4 telcos. Minerva Valley is kind of in the upper northeast corner, and they're moving more out into Marshall County, so they maybe have a limited number of new locations. They might look at Colo's built out, pretty well in an area, and I think that Stratford and particularly Huxcom are the 2 that have obviously the larger number of locations that are eligible for this funding. So. And this would not, the goal is broadband to everybody out in the rural areas. This is just a first step. So we need to really help people understand that everybody in rural Story County is not going to have fiber to the door as a result of this, but this is a phase of it that we're working towards. That being fair, Levi?
Yes, yep. The maps that are out there,
Could you, I'm sorry, we have to have you picked up on the mic.
the maps that are out there have 3 different tiers, and there's a fourth tier are the areas that are not currently served. And so today is the deadline for the challenge process. And so we're trying to put together what our challenges will be there. So yes, there are quite a few locations on the map that are shown, and I can show you guys the map at a later date. But there are going to be people in non-targeted areas that cannot get the service. It's just the way the maps are just not granular enough to get to that point. And so that's been a little bit of frustration on our part, but it's going to go a long way to get as many people connected. And for us, for Huxley Communications, remember we border also Polk County and then Boone County, so we have some plans to try to kind of expand those directions as well either. And so the applications from the 4 telcos, it'll go a long way, but there's still work to be done.
The other thing about the challenge process that I find interesting is individuals can challenge if they're not their area, if they're not getting good service, but they're not on the OCIO map. And I've looked at some of that because I know several people who might be interested in doing that. And I thought, that's going to be a process to get that information out to people and to help them do individual challenges. And I knew we couldn't get that done before the OCIO's deadline.
Today.
Yeah.
It is today at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
And then, and we don't exactly know what that'll do, the challenge process will do for us just yet either, whether it will help us this round or if it'll help us next round, future
And
rounds.
that's my question, is whether they might reissue the map again before the round in 2022.
I think really what the OCIO is hoping is that they get upwards of $100 million worth of applications, so they know that they can move forward and do things year 2, year 3. It'll be unfortunate if not enough telcos in Iowa, or not even just telcos, but broadband providers don't put applications in there that'll reach that $100 million mark, because I'm not sure what that means for year 2 and year 3 if we do not.
Well, we're doing our part.
Yep. Appreciate that. I mean, obviously, moving forward, any further help, because one thing I read in the application on ours, we have like the $5.2 million. That's not what we'll be receiving in grants. That's what I anticipate the project being. So we would be getting less of that in grants, but so we're not asking for $5 million in grants. We're asking for less than that. But yeah, so any further help would be much appreciated as you guys continue to work through those funds.
Any additional questions? All right.
Just phone call away. So give me a shout anytime.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
very much.
Thanks for being here for today too. I like that. Is there a motion?
I move approval of supporting rural broadband grant applications.
Letters of support and the match.
Letters of support and.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Basil?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Adams, aye. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your help on this meeting.
Thanks.
Next up, I have departmental reports. The engineer's quarterly report. Good morning, Darren.
Morning.
Well, it's been a long time since I've been able to come up to the board meeting and show you pictures. I've always liked to show you pictures of what's going on. It's been 1.5 years since I've been able to do this. You've got my picture file you can help me with. I'll start out with the maintenance work update. Our contract rock hauling was completed in May on the east half of the county. This was, I think, by far the largest rock hauling we've ever done in Story County. We're trying to make up for some of that 2019 bad spring thaw we had. So we're still getting the roads back in shape. We spent $1.6 million on rock in fiscal year 21. Our budget was 1.7, so there's 100,000 we didn't get spent, and what that was that's the amount that we haul in-house, and we had such dry conditions. We thought we were better off just cutting rock off for a while, because it's like marbles on top of concrete. It never rained, and that was before we got these recent rains. So we cut that off, but we can make that up yet this fall if we need to.
and we had more compliments than complaints, but we did have a couple complaints on the rock being like marbles, and that's due to the dry conditions. That limestone is great, but you got to get some moisture on it and work it in, and it almost acts like concrete. But until you can do that and get moisture to pack it in, it stays pretty loose. So. We've been working on culvert inspections and found quite a few, unfortunately, that needed some immediate repairs. 2 culverts on S27, one on Lincoln Highway and one on E23 have been repaired. This is the first one I'll show you a couple pictures of on S27 north of Maxwell, a few miles. It's actually one of our most difficult areas in the county terrain-wise to get to. The culvert's about 30 feet deep under the pavement and very steep slopes to get to it. We don't have excavators with tracks on them. Ours have rubber tires, so we can't really get off-road. But what happened is we knew this culvert was getting plugged. We've been keeping an eye on it for a little while. Come to realize it was almost 100% plugged. We didn't know why. We couldn't quite see what it was inside. And then when we looked on the downstream side, looked up, it's quite a long culvert because it's so deep. We could see that the culvert itself too was completely rusted out and was starting to collapse. So that was very concerning under a paved road. So fortunately, we've got a great assistant superintendent. Jeremy has got great experience in tracked excavators. We were able to rent this. He was able to maneuver it down some very steep slopes to get to the bottom to dig this out. Go to the next one. We had to put some sheeting in because it was so steep. Let's say that's almost 30 feet deep. This is the culvert. You can see it's completely plugged, and that's after we took a 20-foot, almost 20-foot stretch off. That's why we had to dig it back so far. Fortunately, the plug ended about there, so we were able to get that open. There was an old propane tank, one of the long ones stuck in there, and a couple big chunks of concrete, and that caused all the dirt to back up and just completely plug it. And you can see the culvert starting to collapse. It's not round. So the only solution we could come up with to get this fixed quickly without completely tearing out the road. If you tore out the road, it'd be a huge excavation, a couple 100 feet of pavement taken out. So Denco is a company that does liners. They said they'd try to do this. We weren't sure if we'd be able to get it fit through there since it was crushing, but we had to reduce the size a little bit, but we got a liner through it. And it worked out, but it was concerning for a while. So got this one fixed, and then a couple miles down the road in the inspections, we found the next picture, old concrete box culvert under S27 as well, and you can see that that's supposed to be concrete. It's just got steel sticking up. So the floor was gone, and the water was actually running underneath the floor and coming out the bottom. Another thing Denco specializes in, they send guys up in these culverts. They climb into anything and fix these things. So they put a new concrete floor in this, fairly cheap, for about $4,000. That's very cheap. And while they're in doing ours, they were able to skip to this one. They're very busy contractors with all the counties, so it's hard to even get them in here. So we were able to get them to do this while they're in, and it worked out good. Next photo would be the Lincoln Highway one. With our inspections, we found this big hole. A concrete box culvert section that actually collapsed on us, so it plugged it. Fortunately, it was outside the road, but that's another deep section. One, we can't get off the road with our equipment, so we hired Jensen Contracting. They came in with their excavators, and this one required a trench box because it was so deep close to the pavement. They had to have the shoring structure in there, which we don't have. So they assisted with the excavating and the boxes, and we helped get the pipe repaired and extended out. So we got that one done as well. And the last one, this gives you an idea of what that first one I showed you on S27, the liner, is. The concrete pipes. This is up on E23 Gilbert that we're paving next week. So we usually inspect all the pipes before we do a paving project, and found the concrete sections were all separating under the road. Each joint had a pile of dirt in the culvert, saying, so you know you're getting the road coming through the pipe sections. So we stick this plastic liner through there and then they grout around it. And that's similar to what we did on S27, but S27 was much longer and more difficult project. So we got this one while Denco was in as well. A number of other culverts we found on gravels that we've repaired in-house. We're able to do those fairly easy in-house. And then some of our culverts under our pavement system are getting towards the end of their useful life. So that's one of the areas we need to probably increase our future budget to start addressing some of these issues. Our crews have also been working on some wood bridge repairs. I don't have many pictures of those for you yet. Go to the next photo. Okay, we're also doing some concrete patching. Unfortunately, R70 south of Highway 30 that goes down to the Ames water treatment plant blew up in June. We had that really hot and humid stretch, and that expands our PC pavements, and it exploded in 2 sections. Fortunately, the same day we had our patcher out running, which is good because we had oil in it already. We don't always have that. So we're able to take all the broken concrete out and fill in the void. What this does is spray rock mixture mixed with asphalt. So it's somewhat of a permanent repair, but the pavement next to it was all broke up and pushed up. So that was able just for us to keep the roads open. And we put bump signs up. We are currently in the process. This is blown up in the past on about the north 3 miles. So we've got about four spots that had blown up in the past, and we're patching those last week and this week. So we're able to keep the road open with 1 lane traffic and do 1 patch 1 day, and then let it cure and open it up at night. So we never have to actually close the road. But next thing on my thing is this patcher. We've been, I'll go back to that one if you can. I know the board maybe is taking a complaint or two. We do a lot of this patching throughout these are old areas that we patched with the patcher. They're kind of black spots with rock sprayed on them. We did a lot of that, more than we've ever done this spring, just doing pothole repair throughout the county. And that hot stretch again, what it does is it really bakes these and it causes it to bleed some asphalt through the top. And that does generate some complaints at times. It is fairly normal when it gets really hot, and it'll generally take care of itself within a day or two. It has moisture in it and it bakes the moisture out the top. And once that's all gone, it's fine. But there was a couple areas we had to go out and sprinkle more rock on top to take care of it for a day or two. But that's what I'm talking about when I talk about spray patching. Okay, next slide. Our pavement marking contractor is still not able to acquire paint due to the paint shortage, but we still might be able to get some in yet this fall to do some pavement marking on our contract. We had about a $100,000 contract with that contractor, but all contractors are having trouble getting paint. There's a number of reasons for the shortage. To complicate things, we've had a shortage on a number of things this year. Paint, signage, unfortunately, multiple reasons. The Anamosa double murder shut down their sign facility for a long time. I don't think may have just opened again, but so that's our first place we go for signage. The second place we go is to the DOT. So the DOT cut us off because one, Anamosa was shut down, and the material, the metal for the sign plates, there's a shortage on that nationwide. So talk about that a little bit more when I get to the new bridge postings we need to be doing. We're having to delay some of those. Wood and steel prices have gone up probably 20 to 30%. We needed a lot of wood recently for our bridge wood repairs, and then steel for all those culvert repairs we've been doing. And then new equipment. We ordered 2 new pickups in February, I believe it was, and we'll be lucky to have them by August. And that's when their original estimate was, so I don't know if you've heard of the computer chip problems they're having in the vehicles. I think that's the slowdown there. So anyway, a number of shortages that I would have never guessed would happen this year, and all at the same time. Move on to construction. We had 10 projects this year. As usual, most of our projects get pushed towards the end of the construction season because ISU and the DOT have stuff that goes on early in the year, and the contractors usually push ours off till the end. But we have gotten some things done. The first one, E18, the asphalt overlay, that one should start in the next couple weeks. Most challenging part on that one is it goes over the interstate, and so we may have to close some of the interstate ramps while we're going through those areas. A lot of smaller stub roads coming out of Story City. We're doing all those about after we do E18. E23 Gilbert asphalt overlay is one I showed you that pipe repair on. That one starts next Monday. We're actually closing the road to do this. We don't normally close roads when we do asphalt overlays, but this one had a challenge on both ends of the project. One end has a roundabout where you can't stop traffic and back up for flagger, because once you back that into the roundabout, you close all 4 ways of the intersection. So the other side has Casey's on it there at Highway 69, and that's got 2 turn lanes in the middle of that. And to do traffic control with that many turn lanes is nearly impossible and kind of dangerous. So we decided we just need to shut this down. We've done a lot of communication with the city and all the landowners through there. There's a number of businesses along that stretch that they are aware of this. We're putting up signs today that say road closed next week. We're putting up some message boards on 190th Moose Road to sign the detour once that takes place Monday morning. Fortunately, we paved Grant Avenue, so that is an easy detour to get down. Otherwise, this would have been much more difficult to do. So that'll take 3 days, 2 days of paving and 1 day of shoulder rocking. And we're going to plan to open the road back up each night. E18 bridge, Warren 19, that's the first picture of construction I have. This started a few months ago. This is early on in the process. They had 1 pier, stems poured. That's the old abutment from the old bridge. We did run into some issues with this lineup goes right here too with piers. They ran into an old abutment prior to the old abutment. So we had to do additional excavation that was unplanned, so that added some additional cost. And they ran into one on the abutment. They were on this end too, so a little complicated there. But the bridge is actually completed. All that's left is some approach pavement and the guardrail adding on to that. So we're hoping in the next two weeks we'll get this back open. Next picture is, this is up on the Hamilton County line, Howard 3, a box culvert. The old bridge abutment's still there. Removed the bridge and put a box culvert in there. That project went well. Next project was Warren 6. This one's completed as well. This was an old wood bridge as well, but hydraulically we were able to get 2 culvert pipes to replace it with, and it had a drop down in the design because the elevation dropped off very quickly. This lasted much longer than we were hoping. First, there was one utility company in particular that we always struggle with getting their line moved. We give them a year's notice to get moved, and so the contractor moved in. They did not have their line moved yet, and there's very little we can do about it. So we put pressure on them, and it took them 3 weeks, I think, to get it moved. So the contractor just sat there with the road closed and moved on to other projects. When they got back in, the pipe came in and it had some fabrication issues, so that also slowed it down as well. And that kind of get back to the pipe shortage and metal issues, but we got it resolved and had some new pipe brought up. That delayed it as well, but this is now open. A few more bridge and culvert. The Collins 7, the last one, actually, that'll be our last one to do. It was Collins 32. That one started last week down south of Collins. They got the road closed, and then we had the flooding, and it destroyed all the road closure signs down there, unfortunately. But so that was a bad start on that one. But they're getting started on that this week. Moving on to construction project design. 13th Street paving extension. We did get the RISE grant application to fund the paving of the first mile east of 580th. And what we've been waiting on is the Nevada annexation that recently got approved. So this project can move forward now. I don't know how quickly it will move forward. We do need to purchase right away. I did make a call to the property owner that owns all the property for this first mile. And we need to sit down and talk about that. This person is also involved with the 580th interchange. DOT's purchasing right away from him on that one, and DOT had to go to condemnation. So just to make you aware, if we had to go through condemnation to do this, this project will probably not happen next year. Condemnation is a long process, and we have to start back at ground zero at the whole right-of-way purchasing process. We'll probably have to hire a consultant to start that out and do appraisals over again. It's a long process. So, and we're also, since this project's arise, we have to let it through the DOT. We have to meet their construction schedule or project development schedule. And it'd be very difficult to get this done next year if we have to go through condemnation.
How long's the grant funding good for?
3 years. So we do have time. But I suggest we meet in closed session to talk about our right-of-way negotiation strategy fairly soon. We also have to come up with a funding agreement with Verbio and the city of Nevada, so I need to get back in touch with John Hall, because I believe he said he would assist us with that agreement. Timberland Drive paving near Story City, that started last November, but they didn't get it completed, but they did get the final lift of asphalt on this spring. We did not get the bill by the end of the fiscal year though, so we'll have $200,000 of our bond funding come out of FY22 for that project. Should be fairly soon, I would think. Road use tax. Our April road use tax allocation included around $400,000 in COVID relief funding for roads, which will make up for any shortfall due to COVID. Our original estimate for our FY21 road use tax revenue was 4.4 million. Our actual turned out to be 5.1 million. So even without that 400,000, we would have come in over. So that's good news, additional funding, but we'll most likely not be able to show any revenue shortfall to qualify for any of the ARPA funding.
The revenue shortfall for the ARPA funding was to be countywide, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah, not just department.
Correct.
Similar talk with the FY21 budget. I'd like to give you an update at the end of the fiscal year to see where we ended up. Our approved FY21 budget was 9.8 million. Our FY21 expenditures ended up at 8.4, which is considerably lower. About $600,000 of that difference is just our normal construction carryover. We never know which year it's going to fall in. It usually carries in the second one, so we don't get the money spent in the prior year. So that money will still get spent just in the next year. But we also had a number of additional unspent funds due to, we had some lower prices, mostly in the first half of the year for fuel, and our usage was down because our winter wasn't all that bad. We cut back on some of the rock to the dry conditions. The new equipment was ordered, but we can't get it. The pavement markings was about 100,000 that we were able to spend that money because they couldn't get the paint. So we had a number of savings, but some of that money will still need to get spent. So that in combination with the additional revenue coming in, we do got some money we need to get budgeted to get spent, but we've got plenty of needs. That won't be a problem. DOT construction issues. The DOT closed the ramps on I-35 at Highway 30, as you're probably aware, through November for bridge repairs. Highway 65 north of Highway 30 is currently under construction, but it's one lane's being kept open at all times throughout the summer. I know right now they're in the process of doing the cold in place recycling process, and that's got to sit before they can do the overlay process on top of that. And lastly, the public comment period for the S14 bridge over Highway 30 and the I-35 widening near Huxley is going on right now. Next photo. I just want to let you know, I did make one comment on the S14 bridge over Highway 30 here in Nevada. the current plan is to do the interchange over here at Airport Road. And when that goes in, there was a plan to pave 610th and Maple Avenue over to here. So my request was if there's any way they could do that paving as part of this project or before it. So when this happens, they got to do all these tie-in and close sections of road, we'll be able to have a paved detour. The DOT commented back and said that did not seem feasible to get it done that quickly. So that probably won't happen, but I had to make the request.
Good effort.
Yeah.
What does that make the detour look like if that's not paved?
Well, I think they're going to try to build the majority of this without impacting S14. They can build faster, but when they do this tie-in, they'll have to be a period of time where, yeah, we'll have to have some sort of detour. And it's just, this is still early on in the project. We haven't got to that point of discussing it, but unfortunately, Southwest Avenue will get hit pretty hard, I would imagine. Now, we don't know what the real impact of this is going to be to Southwest Avenue when this is all said and done. The good news is that they put this little on-ramp here to get traffic back onto 30. Originally, I don't think that was there, so that was going to put a lot more pressure on Southwest. Now northbound S14 traffic that wants to go on Highway 30 can get off. They'll have to go just a little bit further and get turned back on and get onto 30 here instead of going through South S and over. So that is the latest of what the DOT plans on doing.
And yes, I commented on the DOT about how stuff it is, but they don't care.
The Roland Bridge project on E18, the city opened theirs in June. That took the pressure off of a lot of our gravel roads that were being used as the unofficial detour. And a bridge that we had damaged on E15 that was on the official detour route. So it made it difficult to get in there and do much work with all additional traffic on that road. That brings up the bridge accidents. Next photo, please. Had 2 bridges hit recently. I don't believe we've ever really had one that caused structural damage, and now we've got 2 within weeks of each other. First one was on E15. It hit this bridge rail sticking up so hard it exploded the bottom of the cap, and the cap's what supports the whole bridge and the beams. So that's real concerning. Fortunately, the damage was restricted to just outside the first pile. If that would have got into the first pile area, we would have had a real problem. I don't know if that would have been repairable. Fortunately, it wasn't. We had our structural engineers come in as well. This is a secondary check to make sure everything looked good to them and gave us their recommendations on repairs. Next photo. Also hit the rail, which is difficult to repair. It ripped it off. This is what he hit solid. All the wood guardrail posts, even though he didn't hit them, he exploded them all. So all the way down to the end were broke. We got those replaced last week with the contractor. We've got this stretch fabricated in our shop. It's ready to go. It sheared all the bolts off coming into the concrete. So the difficult part for us is anchoring that into this new concrete. So we're trying to figure out a way to get that done. But I believe we'll be able to do it. Next picture. This is our guys did a great job under heavy traffic. This was the detour route. So I was very concerned about having to close a bridge on a detour route. But we did not have to. Our guys did this repair, formed up all this concrete, got it fixed. You can see that gap's not supposed to be there. He moved it that far, and lifted it up a couple inches, hit it so hard. But we got it fixed and back open. We never really closed it, but we also had some issues with the approaches on this bridge where the pavement was starting to deteriorate, but we're using that spray patch to keep it open on the detour route. But that was something we had to patch early on. The earliest we ever had to get our patcher out because it was the official detour route, and it was getting beat up pretty good. This is one of 4 bridges on our paved routes that I'm going to talk about later in our bridge inspection report. But this bridge has a number of other issues as well. Next photo, I might have a picture. Yeah, the other end, The cap that wasn't hit had a pile that was bad, and we were able, while we're in there doing the work, our guys did a concrete repair on that pile, which will help. But the bridge itself has a lot of other issues. We also, there was a big scour hole under this one side. Our guys were able to put a bunch of riprap and fill that in while we were there. Temporary repairs, but the beams on this thing are starting to rust really bad, and within the next 4 or 5 years, this one probably needs replaced. We are going to bill all this damage caused by the accident out to the insurance company and the driver of that vehicle. We're getting real close to having that all completed, so we're putting the bill together. The second bridge just happened last week. This is a truss bridge down northwest of Maxwell, a couple miles. He somehow hit really hard in the middle of it's kind of hard to do, and bent this member here. It's hard to tell in the photo. You can see this rail's bent here where he hit hard, but this is the member that got bent it out a couple inches, to the point I had contacted our structural engineers again. I was hoping this member was just in tension, because that's not as big a deal unless it's pulling on it. But if it's in compression and it's bent, that could cause some problems with the structural capacity of the bridge. Unfortunately, they got back to me and said this is not only tension, it's in compression as well. So at times when a load goes over it, so they're having to do some additional structural analysis. But so I got that on late Friday afternoon, so our sign crew had to come in on Saturday morning. They recommended we post at 3 tons, which is the lowest you can post a bridge. And we coned off about 3 to 4 feet of the one side of the bridge, making it's technically 1-lane bridge now, but now it's really 1 lane, about 12 foot, so you can only fit one vehicle through there. Waiting to hear back on, hopefully get some good news that we could at least post a little bit higher. And if it's high enough, maybe we don't have to fix this, but if we do have to fix this, there's really only 2 options: strengthening it and heating it up and bending it back. And that's what consultant recommended. And the contractor that does that's out of Washington State. And they just travel the country, and they're contacting them to see if they might be through this area anytime soon, where we could heat that up and straighten it. But a little bit yet to be determined on what the ending posting will be. And the other bad news is the person that hit it wasn't in his car, had no insurance on that car. So I'm working with Ethan on what we do if we're going to get any costs back for this. But
So these 2 bridges that you just shown us, just real ballpark, what are the repairs costing the bridge?
the E15 bridge, probably 15 to 25,000. We haven't added it up yet. The consultant put an estimate at the beginning and estimated around 25,000.
Okay.
This one, I have no idea. I'm hoping it's just a lower posting for a while until we can program it for replacement. But if it's posted too low, a handful of people stopped by and talked to my sign guy when he was posting it already, with concerns. But he told them we don't know at this point how low it's going to be posted. What's that?
Farm equipment?
Yeah, you can see in the background, that's the Maxwell new co-op facility that's been built. So they use that some. I don't know how critical it is to them, but we do have a good route east-west with new bridges, so that's a good sign. But and I don't believe there's any houses on this mile, but more to come on that. DD 8 tile damage. Next picture. This was back in the spring as well when we had all the COVID issues going on. Additional problem I didn't need. This is the developer doing the Prairie Ridge subdivision, put in a water line, disturbed a lot of ground doing that. They did not get a permit to do this even. Went through a 32-inch drainage district tile. It's hard to see, but there is a tile there. As you know, our tile are all very old, and you do not want to disturb a tile that big. So they called us actually a day or 2 after they hit it. So we didn't even know this happened. it was concerning. It's hard to tell how close it is to the pavement here, but that tile was so bad, it was starting to work its way back towards the road, and it's actually at an angle like this, so it's so close to the bridge and the guardrail. If we had to dig up the road to fix it, it would have been a real problem. That road would have been closed for a long
The
time.
contractor did not get permission for the work.
No. And we did inform the developer of this drainage district tile originally when they gave us the plan, because we saw a water line would have to go through there at some point. So they knew there was a district tile here. We did not know what side of the stream it was on. Some of those district tile, unless you've worked on them, you don't know where they're located. We actually had it located close to this other side, but the way they constructed this, just open trench, I was like, well, how are you going to avoid it anyway? They're like, well, again, because we required a bore under this. They were just trenched through it anyway. So they were going to hit it regardless of where it was. So that was pretty disappointing.
So who's gonna? Okay.
Next
Just
picture,
thinking
just
about landowners, and that's not landowner responsibility to fix that tile.
no, this is a drainage district tile. I did get Kent out there eventually because we haggled for a week on who was responsible for the repairs and how it was going to get repaired. And I was like, you're going to repair it however our district engineer says he wants it repaired. So that's why I pulled Kent in, and he gave him specific instructions on how to repair it. This is looking down the good stretch of tile. You can see it's cracked both sides, top. This is how a lot of our district tile look out there. So once you break into this, it's pretty much held up by the soil pressure around it. Once you disturb all that, this just starts collapsing on you.
So there's another tile there to the west of the open ditch?
No, that's where our map showed it was, but we really don't know. It can be off a couple 100 feet at times. On those maps were done 100 years ago, just on a map without.
This is on the south side,
South side, yeah.
obviously. But there's a tile that goes into an open ditch under that bridge.
The tile extends under the road. Let's go one more picture. Conservation owns that big triangle now,
Yeah.
and this is downstream from that repair. It's actually blown out. That's a hole big enough to put a semi in. You can see the old tile.
Yeah.
The outlets, this is R38 in the background. It outlets into the R38 ditch and goes down. That's the district they were talking about doing a wetland project on.
Yeah.
So it outlets down here. All this stuff's getting pretty close to the outlet, so I informed Mike of this. We haven't repaired this yet. It's not causing a lot. We cleaned out some of it so the water flows through it better. We're not sure what we're gonna, Kent looked at it while he was down here. It's not causing a lot of issues where it's at right now, but we're probably gonna end up fixing this hole before too long, maybe this fall. We're just so busy right now. We can't work it in ourselves. But back to the tile repair,
Wouldn't that be something that the contractor would be responsible for fixing?
not this repair, not the first one, yes.
Oh, this isn't a result of that?
No.
This was already here.
Different issue.
Okay.
And looking at the old area photos, it's been there, I think, for a couple of years. But just kind of give you a reason why you don't want to disturb this old tile, because once you cut into it, it's very hard to repair. They originally disturbed about a 20-foot section when they dug through it. Ended up, I think, being closer to a 40-foot repair by the time. It's hard to connect a new tile onto that damaged tile. You got to do it very gradually, and hopefully that repair, we inspected the whole repair process by their contractor. So hopefully that holds up, but it took a lot of haggling and more than necessary. They should have taken responsibility for it right up front, did whatever we asked, but it was
So
difficult. When
we were given this triangular piece of land here, we inherited a bad drainage tile.
Yeah, but they aren't responsible for it. The district is, so cost wise, it won't be all conservations. They'll
Yeah, but
contribute to the
conservation is the
district.
landowner now, whereas somebody else was the landowner
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
That's my point.
Bridge inspections. Our FY21 bridge inspection has been completed by WHKS, and we received the report in May. The report included some unexpected issues with some of our bridges on our paved routes. Two bridges on S14 south of Nevada had new issues. If you go to the next picture, this is the first bridge south of 30. Ignore all this stuff here, but what that is just some sealant. What happened is this plate that's supposed to be centered under this bearing rocker here started moving, and we don't know why. Started moving back out. It's got steel beams so that those expand and contract with heat and colder temperatures, and over time it must have just started pushing that out. So it's surrounded by a metal box with concrete poured inside, and the concrete cracked inside that box right here. We were sealing that crack, and while we did it, he just covered the rest to kind of protect that concrete from water. But we were able to get a steel plate put in back behind it so it would not move any further. And the steel around this box actually popped open on this corner that you can't see. And we're in the process of fabricating a steel box. We're going to try to slide around that and bolt it down and try to control that. Since the steel and concrete bridge, we're not sure what the repair options. I've talked to kind of our go-to bridge repair guy to see if we could jack this bridge up somehow to get this slid back. We're still kind of trying to work that out, but in the meantime, we're just keeping an eye on it. This is the bridge that wasn't anywhere in our radar of needing replaced. But in this process, we come to find out this bridge, they redid this bridge. Our bridge inspection report usually says when it's been refurbished instead of completely replaced, but it shows it was, I think, in the 1970s. So we thought it was much newer, but they actually put it on an old 1940s abutment. So that concrete is starting to really deteriorate quickly all of a sudden. So this one will hopefully not have to replace in the next 5 years, but we need to get it on the radar. Or bridges on paved routes are concerning to me because if unexpected thing comes up and you need to replace it and close it, you're talking maybe a minimum year and a half to get a bridge designed, let, and contractor in. So you're talking about closing a paved road for that long. So that's concerning. That brings us to the next one on S14. This bridge is a twin to the one I just showed you up on E18 that we replaced this year. They were both built in 1941. It wasn't in our 5-year program. I always considered putting it in there, but all of a sudden the deterioration has gone much rapidly than planned. These ends are starting to spall off and the beams are rusting. So I've already contacted WHKS for a design proposal. They've gotten that back to me, and I'll have that on the board agenda for next week. I want to get the design on this one going, even though it's not even in our 5-year program. That's my recommendation, to keep this moving as quickly as we can. We're so understaffed. We do a lot of our own designs, but we need to have somebody from the outside help us out and get this one going as soon as possible. The other two, one is the one up on E15 that's showing a number of issues, so that one's going to have to be added into our 5-year program. Next photo, and the fourth one on a paved route is this one up on E18 west of Story City. Unfortunately, we've got too many of these bridges out there with wood substructures. You drive over it and you think you got a nice concrete and steel bridge, but underneath it's wood. Wood does not last as long. We've known this one needed some repairs for a few years now, so we came in. I'll show you the next photo, but stay here for now. Our guys are doing some repairs underneath the structure, but this one wing is the big issue right now. This piling goes up and formed into this cap here, and this pile is really rotten now, and it's held back by these tie rods, and the bottom's blown out as well, and it's kind of bowing out.
Is that over Kegley?
I believe that's Kegley, yes. So we've been watching this one and worked with our bridge consultant, since it's not just a typical repair. It's actually quite difficult one, and they've came up with a solution, driving some sheet piling in here and pouring concrete on the inside to stabilize this. So that was a good solution. Fortunately, it might end up being fairly expensive. They designed it, and the design calls for 30 feet in the ground of the sheet piling and 15, so 45-foot long sheet piling. One, the cost of sheet piling is high right now with the steel, and two, a contractor to do that's going to be hard to find. But PCI that's doing our E18 bridge, we met them on the site, and they've got a special crane and pile driver they think they can do it with. We're waiting on WHKS to finalize that design, and then we probably just take it to PCI to get a price. Once I get that, I'll bring it to the board. I'm estimating somewhere to 40 to 50,000. The sheet,
Just repair
yeah, the sheet piling alone was 30 or 25,000.
it. And we've got a wooden structure there that we're kind of overlaying with concrete.
So if we go to the next picture, I'll show you what we've been planning on doing this for a few years, but with the derecho and everything, we've just been having a hard time getting to our bridge repairs with our. These boards were not there. We did this all in-house this spring or summer. Those piling are fairly long, and they were starting to rot at the bottom. So a typical repair for these is to face it with plank and then pour concrete inside to stabilize the whole thing. So we've got this far done on both abutments. The issue is the concrete coming in. Concrete's difficult to get in and underneath the bridge. Denco, that contractor I talked about, we were planning on them pumping it in, but they got a new pump this year that does not pour regular concrete. They only do slurry. So we're gonna have to, I think we met with a concrete pumper out there yesterday to get an estimate to pump the concrete in underneath this. It's just, repairs are always difficult to get to under bridges, so that's always a challenge. But hopefully we'll get this poured soon, and once we get the estimate on the repair to the wing, hoping to get, oh yeah, to add to it, yesterday I wanted to have our crews do a little digging where that sheet piling needed to go, because we did a probe and we're hitting some concrete chunks. So we wanted to make sure we weren't going to hit anything with the sheet piling that was too major. So we were going to excavate it out just 5 foot or so. So we did 1 calls, and there's a major fiber right in the line that we want to drive the sheet pile. So without advance notice, I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to get that moved.
Fiber?
Yeah. So that's going to slow the process down. So
Which bridge was that?
this is the E18 up
E18.
west of Story City.
Okay.
But even with these repairs, we're still probably looking, get lucky, you probably get 10 more years out of this structure.
That's what I was thinking. It doesn't, you're gonna put a lot of money in this, and it's not a.
Yeah,
E18 is pretty busy. Closing E18 could be a.
the unfortunate thing is we're to a point where, like I said, you're a year and a half out.
Yeah.
If you want to even get started on talking a new structure, these repairs got to be done now, regardless.
Sure.
The wing might have to wait until next spring if they can't get the line moved and all that. And the sheet piling could, I don't know what the issue would be, but you never know. Something could happen. There could be something in the ground that restricts driving, but got to assume at this point the sheet piling is going to work. So with that being said, the bridge inspections kind of brought this to light, and it's going to cause a lot of rearrangement in our 5-year program for bridges. First of all, I'm probably going to recommend we hold off on, we've got over $1 million bridge on 150th Street, a gravel road over the Skunk River, planned for a year or 2 from now. We'll probably need to hold off on that until we get this all figured out. And then a number of other wood structures in the rural area that continue to deteriorate. We're gonna have to figure out a game plan what we're gonna do with those. But we're doing the repairs on a lot of those as we can, but we're finding ones that just the repairs are not possible. So yeah, the whole bridge issue we've been talking about for a number of years. It's a challenge for counties, and Story County has more bridges than most counties, so it's challenging for us in particular. The report also recommended many bridge load posting changes that the board will enact by a resolution. This has been delayed by that load posting sign availability. Many of the new load postings were due to, we had to rate for a new truck configuration. Those dump trucks you see out there now are getting more and more axles in the back. Some of them have 6 axles all together in the back and then 1 in the front. That puts a lot of load on a bridge. In particular, we have a lot of short wood bridges, but when you get a lot of axles, they're still all on that one bridge. So the federal government said we need, those trucks are starting to become more popular, so we need to start rating our bridges for those. So I think it was about 15 of our bridges were just strictly due to that new rating for the new truck. I can't tell you how many the bridge load posting changes that were due just to the inspections. We actually found the signage. We've got those all signed already. It's these new ones that aren't quite as critical to get load posted. The ones we're gonna have to hold off on until we get the new signs in to get those load posted. And then that resolution will come to the board, making that kind of legally, if somebody does go through one of the bridges with an overweight load, the board has taken action to set that load limit, and so you can take legal action against that person if you need to. So that's important to have in place. That resolution will also include some permanent bridge closures that I'll be recommending. Most of them you know about already. There's a Jasper County Bridge on the corner that's been closed for a year or two now already. The one by Maxwell, the historic arch, that's been closed since we had that kid that went over the edge and took out the guardrail. Was that about a year ago? Maybe not quite a year ago. So we'll be recommending we permanently close that one. There's one up on the Hardin County line. I'm not sure if we'll have that one ready in time. I've been working with Hamilton for a couple of years on that one and talking to the landowners, and if we can get that one permanently closed as well, but we may not have enough input on that one. And by the time we need to do this resolution, so that might happen after the fact. Yeah, move on to dust control. The second application of dust control is scheduled for the week of July 26th. So that's coming up soon. And lastly, we have an engineering technician position currently open to fill our vacant position. Looks more likely that position will probably be vacant for a year. The person that was in that position was on a 4-month military leave situation, and before he came back, he resigned. He had the same military thing last year, so we've been struggling staffing wise in the office, and technicians are very hard to find right now, to the point at our meeting recently with all the counties. I think the DOT commented that I think DMAC, they're in the state have come up with a program maybe to allow tuition free for the technician program, pay 100% of the program to get some people into this field because it's greatly needed.
So is it a 2-year degree?
It's a 2-year degree.
And DMAC has the curriculums at DMAC?
DMAC, I believe Hawkeye Tech also, they've always had one. I think it's still in place, but.
What's the curriculum called? Is it the engineering technician or?
Yeah.
Well, Chamber's working right now on some workforce training. That's why I bring it up. And this is not one I've heard about, so I might talk with them about a program. It's going to be kind of a wraparound service program with different propose to us?
Sure. So we've had our position open, how long has it been now? A few weeks or maybe a month, and had 4 applicants. Unfortunately, they're either don't have the certain technician degree, or they're way overqualified and asking for too much money. But it's hard to find the middle ground where they have the degree and they need a job, because they can pretty much get a job wherever they want. So you almost got to catch the new grads as they get out of school. And I don't know if there's many fall grads. It might be a spring time to wait, but anyway, that position is difficult to fill, and I just want to thank Tyler and Brian, my assistant, and my other technician, that take on all those extra duties, really for the past 2 years, and getting hit pretty hard this fall with construction all at the same time. Inspecting all that stuff is difficult with two employees. So thanks to those guys for helping out. It's been tough, but we're getting through it. I think that's all I have. Questions?
Just a comment. Anybody who thinks we don't need some help with infrastructure funding should look at these pictures, because it's the things you're needing to do with the monies available are stopgaps. And you do a good job of making the best use of the monies we have, but at some point, yeah, we need to, it seems like we need to have somewhat accelerated bridge replacement. And that also has the personnel aspect then, because you have to manage that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So this was a lengthy presentation, and I think it's because there's lots more bridges on this list than there were the last time we did this. And
Yeah.
it says we need some help from the feds to get this done, and we may need to think about your resources as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you and your staff, Darren. I know it's been a tough year, and I know I've gone out and talked about the need for infrastructure. That this certainly highlights the extent of the need.
Yeah, I stressed the need we need to recruit more summer help next year too. We had a difficult time getting any this year, and we got 2 at the last minute, which has been, we've had so many pavement issues. They've almost done nonstop flagging since they got here. That takes a lot of staff when you do anything on the pavement, because those flaggers have to be out there all day on both ends. That takes 2 people. So they've done that a lot this summer. We need to get more summer help. Our crews generally build up a lot of overtime in the winter, and they take it in the summer. That's their right. But we've got crew leaders and stuff, they're working 4 days a week now with 410s, and a lot of times they're taking 1 or 2 days off vacation. This leaves a couple days out a week to get something done. It's hard to get things done in the summer. We need more help.
Do you have any comparisons with other counties on number of staff in secondary roads and engineering, and just to show us?
Yeah, I've got that available. I've went over that many times in the past with different boards, looking at that. I've even looked back, 20 years ago, just at Story County, the staffing was, a lot greater. I think we had 6 more full-time, and we'd hire 10 to 12 summer help. That shrunk because of our budget, and there wasn't much we could do about it, but it's getting tough.
Well, yeah, I'm concerned thinking, maybe we're gonna have some funds come our way, but that's a good problem to manage, but it takes people to manage it.
Yeah.
And it takes people, if you're gonna have more bridge replacements, it's more work on your folks. So I'm really cognizant, and I wanna think about that.
I'm sorry, I just remembered I think I had one more slide on there that I forgot because I added it. It happened after I submitted my report. I was going to comment that the one good thing about this summer has been the dry weather. We can get under these bridges and get things done we normally can't get done, and we've been able to work without rain days. Our guys have gotten a lot of work done. I got thank them as well. But what we didn't need was last week, the flooding, mostly around Collins area. We had a lot of water over the road, 15, 20 spots. Fortunately, it did not do too much damage. We did find one pipe that washed out the downslope side. We've got it fenced off and we're able to leave the road open. This just came up yesterday morning. It's hard to tell in this photo how bad it really is, but there's a whole, we just did a new culvert replacement last year. This is the culvert you can see sticking out here. There was an old retaining wall holding the field back with the drain tile coming through it. They wanted to keep that there, so we kind of had to do a special design and cut our culvert short to get this all fit in. We try not to disturb this as much as possible when we did the work, but with this flood, either his tile, there's a private tile, either blew out and it blew 2 feet underneath this retaining wall and created a mess. This is a probably 20, 30 foot long hole back here. And it started, that's our typical clay tile. Fortunately, this one's private. It's not counting, but you can see they're all just collapsing. And so I don't know how far back he's gonna have to go to get that connected onto a good stretch, and how we're gonna fix this retaining wall underneath that comes right into the culvert. We're working with him. We don't know if it's something we did or if his tile blew out. He had done some repairs last year on this tile. So it's been disturbed recently. We're kind of maybe coming up with a cost share to get this fixed. This is one thing that came out of the recent flooding, but I forgot I had that on there because it just came up yesterday.
Come on.
Goodness.
Wow. You seem to, yeah.
But yeah, we didn't need the flooding, but so far this year has been pretty fortunate weather-wise on getting the construction work done, so I can't complain there. All right, thank you.
Aaron. Back up, Lisa Markley on our fiscal year 21 quarterly financial report.
I'm gonna note that I'm here on time this time.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so yesterday I put actual information in all of your budget books, your budget history books. So if you have any individual department questions, or there's a breakdown in there, salaries and operating per department and all that. But don't be afraid to ask if you have questions on any of that stuff. So here's how we ended FY21. As you can see, it was an odd year because of COVID. 16 out of the 24 departments were under 95% of expenditures. So the money just didn't get spent as budgeted because there just wasn't a lot of the needs were lower. The way we ended our year fund balance wise, we talked about the assignments and the fund balance resolution earlier. I wanted to give a little bit more detail on that. So we ended at 43% of our expenditures in the general fund. We budgeted at like 30. So our ending fund balance is way higher than we anticipated for general and for supplemental. Okay. So basically there is about $3.9 million worth of unassigned funds over and above what we planned on. And I will disclaim that with it's actually closer to 3.5 because I'm working on the budget amendment because we can't get into the new year without doing a budget amendment right away. I'm working on the budget amendment and there's about $400,000 worth of expenses that conservation is carrying forward. So really they should have been assigned, but I never got any indication that those needed to be assigned. So I'm just telling you that I'm moving them forward. So, so yeah, as we talked about, let me see, Rural Services Fund came in at 42%, which is unheard of, but that's expenses down and local option sales tax up. There you go. The secondary roads fund came in at 67% ending fund balance. And then on revenues, overall, we had a little over, just over what we budgeted for revenues. Out of 18 departments, though, 10 were over their revenue projections. So. And I'm going to come next week and talk to you about sending an amendment to the paper for publication for the FY22 budget to move some of these funds forward and to start thinking about the current year we're in and what we need there.
Sorry, were there any questions for Lisa?
Not right now. Let me think.
Yeah. Okay.
I need to think of that.
All right.
All right.
Do we meet at 3 today?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on, upcoming agenda items. Any upcoming agenda items?
I might have something, for housing assistance.
Okay.
Housing assistance, rent, and utility assistance.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to public forum number 2, comments from the public on items not on this agenda. The board may not take any action on the comments due to the requirements of open meetings law, but may do so in the future. We'll open public comment period now. If you're online, just hit *9 or unmute yourself, raise your hand. Not seeing anyone for public comment, we'll close public forum number 2. Next up are liaison assignments, committee meeting updates and announcements. Who would like to start? Supervisor Markin?
Yeah, this afternoon at 3, we have the rescue plan funds meeting. Tomorrow I'm going to a town and gown celebration of Noel, I believe, and then followed by Story County Emergency Management Commission. Thursday we have the Economic Development Group of Story County meeting in Colo. I have another broadband studies steering committee meeting, and followed by a formal Creek WMA meeting. And I think that's it for the week. But yeah, and Monday. Next Monday, we have Grant 5 hearing.
Today I've got a housing trust meeting and then the American Rescue Act work session. Tomorrow is the County Food Fest. And I'm also going to be stopping in at the Town and Gown event, and then I have a CCJ Executive Committee meeting Thursday. There's the Changemakers presentation with the Chamber in the morning. And Story County Economic Development Group, and then the NACO leadership meeting Friday, the NACO leadership event, CCJ grant committee meeting. And then I've got the drainage district meeting on Monday.
Yep, and I have the American Rescue meeting this afternoon. I have the ISAC work group tomorrow. Thursday, I have the Changemaker as well. I have a HERDA meeting, the Story County Economic Development, NACO, and a CICS meeting. So busy day Thursday. And then, yeah, the DD5 on Monday is what I have.
And then this weekend is Scandinavian Days and
Zero days and zero days.
And then there's a ribbon auction for the Story County Fair on Sunday.
A lot of activities going on. Unless there's anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Merkin?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. Hens? Aye. We are adjourned.